I'm not a scientist, but I have a feeling that when atoms are energized, that is how they behave under the microscope.
Hello, welcome to Solution Prime TV, and today I'm going to talk about SI units and unit. What's the difference between SI unit and unit? We've been using this, you've heard a lot about SI unit and unit. What are the differences? You know, the SI unit was derived from French word Système International. Système International, how you pronounce it. Yes, but the unit is a normal unit that we know. Generally, I'm going to talk about the SI unit and the unit. Let me give you a typical example for you to know the difference between the SI unit and the unit. After that, I will dive into the definition of SI unit and unit for you to understand. Okay, for example, if this has a mass, right? When you talk about mass, it's a quantity of matter containing in an object. So this is a matter because it can occupy space. Yes, it has mass and can occupy space. So the quantity that this object contains is the mass. It is its mass. Yes. So if you want to know that I'm measuring the mass of this object, the unit will help me to know that I'm measuring the mass of this particular object. If I'm measuring the weight of this object, is the unit that will help me to know that I measure the weight of this object, or I measure the mass of this object, or the temperature of this object. So if you see a figure with a unit like 50 kg, then it means that is the mass of the object. If you see 50 degrees Celsius, then that is the temperature of the object. The unit helps you to know the quantity of the object. Okay, if I want to measure the electric current of a substance, then I will use ampere because unit there tell me to know. So if I want to measure the length of an object, if you see meters, if you see centimeters, if you see millimeters, then it means you are measuring the length of the object. You see, the unit determines the quantity, the length. Anytime you have unit, anytime you hear unit like kilogram, grams, milligrams, ton, that is the unit of a mass. So milligram, grams, kilograms, tons, then you are talking about the mass of the object. These are all units, but the SI unit is kilogram, but other unit is not considered. The grams, the milligrams, the ton, they are not SI units. Only the kilogram is the SI unit. Why? So the SI unit, which is Système International, that is the French word, and English, International System of Units, that is it. It's a unit accepted by science or technology worldwide. That is the SI unit. They've accepted that if you want to, calculate any substance, any object in unit, let's use the SI unit. It is being accepted worldwide, but the other unit is not like that. Okay, so that is the difference between the unit and SI unit. So for example, the mass that I said, if we talk about temperature, temperature too is the same thing. We have degree Fahrenheit, degree Celsius, degree Fahrenheit, degree Celsius, Kelvin. So these are the unit for temperature. But the SI unit for temperature is Kelvin. That is the unit accepted worldwide. Let me consider length. You see, if you want to measure any length of an object, you can use ruler to measure this length of the object. So whenever you see millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, kilometers, meters, these are all units of length. But over all these units, only one unit is being accepted or picked as the SI unit, which is the meters. So in physics, when we are doing calculation, you will see that most of the calculation, they will ask you to convert to SI unit. If it is centimeters, probably you have to convert it to meters. So the meters is the SI unit. So for the SI unit, I will talk about the base quantity. See, we have base quantity and we have derived quantity. When we talk about the base quantity, then we are talking about a quantity which depends on its own, or is a quantity in which the other quantity depends on it. So when you talk about base quantity, examples of base quantity, they are masses, mass, length, temperature, amount of substance. They are 7. Okay. So when you see those SI units, the base quantities, they have the SI units. So the base quantity like mass has its SI unit, meters. Okay, let me go to the length. I've talked about the length. Masses, I've talked about the masses because I said masses. The other unit for masses is milligrams, grams, ton. But the SI unit is kilogram. Kilogram is part of the unit, but the kilogram is the SI unit. That is the unit accepted. So in physics, we use the SI unit more than the other unit. The instrument we use to measure mass is, there are many. We have beam balance, we have weighing scale, we have top and balance. These are the instruments that we use to measure the mass, the quantity mass, and it's a base quantity. They depend on their own. Yes. But if I consider volume, volume is a derived quantity, because when you talk about derived quantity, it's a quantity obtained by combining the base quantities. You see, so if I consider volume, volume is length times breadth times height. So length is length, breadth is also a length, a height is also a length. So when you combine the base quantities, then you are going to form a derived quantity.